Hello, and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers. This is episode 78, New Year's Pledge Abundance. And this is kind of a special episode for us because last week, Jay and Ryan talked about lifestyle. And that got us really excited because you and I love to talk lifestyle. In fact, some people might say that you, Wendy, are an expert on lifestyle. So this week we're going to talk about lifestyle, and it's going to be a little bit different than our other episodes because we're going to reveal a little bit about who we are, which we've never done before.
Yeah, not just a little bit, but actually who we are.
Like links.
And it seems appropriate to do this because we're talking about lifestyle, and we came to this and became eBay sellers because of how much it aligned with some pledges we made that led to our lifestyle. So we're going to start today by telling you a story, and which seems really apropos with Christmas coming, right? And people read the night before Christmas. The story sounds
fire and
story
dream
season.
Of sugar plums. That kind of story.
So our story is a story about how Mikey and I met. And this was about 12 years ago in New York City, and we were at a costume party. And I went to this costume party dressed as a broken heart because at the time I had a broken heart. And my costume I had made myself, and it was with EL wire, this luminescent wire that flashes and blinks. And I was flashing in red in the dark, and I looked into the distance and I saw this other green EL wire creature also flashing, getting closer and closer to me. And as he got close, I noticed that his costume was a giant Band-Aid that went across his chest like a beauty queen sash. And he came over to me and said, Mikey?
Said, are you a broken heart? Because I'm a Band-Aid.
And I said, hell yeah. So it would turn out for us that was a pretty important day because it started a lot of inquiry about lifestyle, about how we were living our lives. At the time, Mikey and I had big New York City jobs, the kind that take up your whole life. And together, once we met, we started talking about how we weren't very satisfied, even though we had got these jobs that were pretty hard to obtain, and we spent our lives trying to get. We went further and noticed that actually all the worst decisions we had made were always decisions made around money. So I, for example, switched majors in college from art to business because I was scared I couldn't pay my student loans. And we noticed some other things too, right? Like we were consumers. We worked really, really hard. In fact, our lives were like a weird pattern loop of working really, really hard to obtain money, to buy the things we needed. And we wondered, could we make those things or obtain them another way and have a better effect on the life of this earth than industry was having? So let's tell them about the whiteboard that we wrote our question on. We asked a weird question, which was,
what's the cost of a job?
Right.
And so we made a list of what are some of the expenses around having a job, including your time, commuting, the time that we can't spend with each other, the quality of food that we eat out. You could probably have your own list that looks something like this too.
Extra clothes.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make stuff like our costumes, but we didn't have time to do that. So we were kind of forced to buy stuff. We didn't have time to even hunt in the waste stream because there's no time. We just bought everything we needed. Mm-hmm. So if anything, we really contributed a lot to the waste stream. But anyway, so it was around that time I heard an interesting quote by a guy named Krishnamurti who once said, "It is no sign of wellness to be well adjusted to a sick society." And that was like an arrow through my heart anyway, because I felt like Mikey and I were really well adjusted. So what did we do? Together, we went ahead and
we quit.
We quit our jobs. And we really didn't know where that was going to lead us, but we made some pledges. And that's why this podcast today is about our primary pledge. So our primary pledge was we're going to stop seeking wealth, which is what we had been doing. And
we're going to start living out of the waste stream.
Right, because essentially we live amid the largest surplus of waste ever to exist in the history of this world.
And we're going to make our stuff. We're going to take the time and make things that matter to us, our food, our clothes.
Yeah, and instead of seeking wealth, which we had been doing, we're going to seek
Abundance.
Abundance. So that gets us started on the lifestyle we now live today. It was really logical for us to become eBay sellers, right? We made this pledge to live out of the waste stream. We left New York. We moved to New Mexico. We got a piece of land. We started to forage and find garbage from dumpsters and stuff from thrift shops and yard sales to build what has become our homestead. And it was just a logical extension of that to buy all those extra things we didn't actually need, but we liked and we thought were interesting, and then sell them online for that little bit of money we needed. And that's how we got started. We want to really talk to you today about abundance and share with you how amazing it is to be abundant instead of wealthy. So essentially, I think it starts with a decision, time over money. We're always choosing between the two. We traditionally choose money. What happens when we choose time?
Well, once we choose time, we have time to make higher quality goods. And for us, most of that ends up being in the kitchen, just doing food preparation throughout the day. We have time to work on our garden. We have time to go running, sometimes 3-4 hours at a time. The dog gets epic dog walks twice a day. We get to see the sunset sometimes during those dog walks and appreciate them. And we just have time to make stuff and to learn new things. We have time to really research and go deep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever learned so much so rapidly as since we've made this decision. It helps that we don't have a television or any distractions.
We just have to wake up and do an hour of packing each day for eBay.
Right. And go to yard sales on weekends.
Yeah.
So some other benefits that came out of our pledge to live out of the waste stream that we learned later was waste gives us a freedom from worry. I remember back in New York, once I was sort of aware of what was really going on in the world in terms of the consequences of industry, everything I took in had the weight of the world. Who made this? Was it sweat labor? Was it child labor? What was the real cost in its production, in its pollution? You can't get your head around it. It's vast and it's complicated. So waste was really freedom from that worry. And then we later learned that things that have been in the waste stream a long time have off-gas. So in terms of toxicity, the goods that we interact with from the waste stream have long since off-gassed, the harmful chemicals. Because we pledged to be makers of things, we learned, waste was pretty much risk-free. So, if you don't know how to use a power tool, you don't know how to use tools, or you want to learn how to make something, start with waste. It's already going to landfill. If you make a mistake, c'est la vie, but you'll learn something, and it's free. One of my favorite things about waste is how you dress.
Yeah, I mean, often I'll be out in the yard working in some crazy outfit, and I'll be like, look, I dressed myself. And it looks like I dressed myself. It is that odd.
But even as we're sitting here right now, I'm looking at you, and you're wearing like a groovy wool sweater.
Uh-huh. That's definitely from yard sale.
Positively. And I can see there's several holes.
Yeah.
And so what? And actually, I'm sitting in front of you wearing a sweater full of holes. And again, it's wool. It's wool. And again, it's treasuring something and valuing it a little bit more than just throwing it away. Essentially, wool started off as a creature. So anyway, and another thing I love, speaking about dressing yourself, Mikey, is freedom from trend. Trend is a tremendous, tremendous force, and mostly the branding associated with trend really tells people around you either how much money you have or how much money you don't. One thing it surely says is that you're a conformist, that you don't think for yourself, that you are following. So the emancipation from trend that we experience living in the waste stream has been seriously relaxing.
Yeah, we can walk around in sweaters with holes.
Yeah.
That we found in the garbage.
And one can ask of waste, what happens when it runs out, right? Oh, one day it might run out.
Yeah, everyone's really concerned when we run out of garbage.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to run out, but I think, at least for us, we like to think that it's a resource to learn how to make stuff with. And perhaps one day we may be smart enough not to produce as much, but in exchange, we will be making more goods as opposed to relying on industry. So, a big part of any conversation about abundance is economy. So the economy that we lived in New York was pretty unreliable. Just as we left the city, the market was starting to go haywire. We realized even the people who sell and buy and trade didn't even understand the products they were selling, buying, and trading. It lost its logicalness. It wasn't like a bad rainy season in Florida caused the price in oranges to change. It was manipulated.
Yeah, I think at some point we realized that it's not a game that we can win. We can't work enough hours to be super successful and retire early. Like, for us, there was only really one direction, and that was to opt out, because we just couldn't, make it on the let's work our butts off kind of philosophy.
Yeah, I remember several different ages in my life stopping and crunching the numbers. Okay, this is my field. I'm in marketing and advertising. This is how much people in my field make. This is how much they make if they're great and if they suck. And then I get my 2 weeks vacation here. And then eventually I get 4 here. And I looked across the board at these numbers and saw my whole life into the future and realized it was utterly mundane. I would only ever get so far. And yeah, the payback wasn't enough, really. It wasn't enough.
And you and I have both been very anti-corporation, so working for a large corporation was just sort of its own problem for us to deal with. Like, we just couldn't sort of, I was embarrassed to tell people who I worked for when I lived in New York. And legally, I can't even tell you who I work for because I had to sign a bunch of papers that said I won't ever tell anyone.
Yeah, and as individuals, I think we can all say, oh, I'd never pollute a river. But when we work for corporations, it's just abstracted. Indirectly, we contribute to the polluting of the river through the impact of those corporations. So, yeah, there was a freedom there from being stuck in a world that a corporation envisioned and kind of doing their dirty work to making a world that we envision. Some other things we got to see. My dad, he's an old blue-collar freeman, and he was always, the pension, you got to get the pension, and it's so reliable, it's rock solid.
Was his pension rock solid?
I don't think that he lost his yet, but we've certainly seen many people in the last couple of years start to lose theirs, and things like Social Security are suddenly not the solid ground everybody thought. So, I think we're in a new game today. So again, speaking a little bit about wealth, more on maybe a little bit of a philosophical thread. I heard a quote recently, and somebody said, wealth is not measured in what you have, it's measured in what you need. So you can extrapolate, to need nothing is to be wealthy. I've noticed, and I talk about a lot, that today I think we really have a world where there's two kinds of poverty. We used to know the kind of poverty, which is I don't have enough to live. But today's version of poverty is I have enough and I don't know it. And this is where we see hoarding and consumerism gone crazy, and stock market folks who just can't get satiated, can't get enough. And essentially we can say that this kind of poverty is a poverty suffered by pretty much the people who run the largest part of the way the world is. They run the show. Those who can't get enough, who don't know they have enough. So, that logically leads to the question, are you poor if you don't know it? So we moved from one of the wealthiest cities in the country to one of the poorest. And how do you feel living here?
Well, we live in a trailer park. I mean, it's just us.
We bought a trailer park, so we live in that.
Yeah, and we live in sort of a modified ancient trailer in the park.
Right, that we renovated.
And we spend a lot of time in dumpsters and stuff. No, I don't feel poor. No.
I don't feel poor either. In fact, I feel really wealthy.
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow I'm just looking forward to going running for 4 hours, I'm glad I have that option.
So we should say we haven't either of us actually had or needed a job since we left New York, and that was
8 years.
8 years ago. Our cost of living is so low because we live from the waste stream and we make a lot of our own goods that we don't need to earn very much. And eBay has been a tremendous thing for us because it really gives us that little bit we need.
Yeah, and it gives us the autopilot so we can really be roaming around and not stuck.
Yeah.
Not having to stay home every day to do things.
I wanted to read a quote that I earmarked from a book when we were talking about setting up this podcast for you guys today. And it's a quote from William Dafoe. Maybe some of you have seen the movie Far Away So Close, where he plays an angel. So it's about time. And he says, Time is short. That's the first thing. Time is a servant if you are its master. Time is your God if you are its dog. We are the creators of time, the victims of time, and the killers of time. Time is timeless. That's the second thing. And you are the clock. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great quote. So, do you want to tell our listeners about your book?
Who we are?
Yeah.
Well, it seems appropriate to do it because everything we talked about today and this idea of taking a New Year's pledge toward abundance instead of wealth is a lot of the subject matter in a book that I wrote that came out earlier this year. So the book is titled The Good Life Lab: Radical Experiments in Hands-on Living. And I am the author. My name is Wendy Johanara Tremaine. Along with that, so basically the cover of the book is me and Mikey, and the book is our story, starting with the Band-Aid story and leaving New York City, and ending with current time, living as homesteaders and makers of things living from the waste stream in New Mexico. So along with that, Mikey and I have been keeping a blog for about the same length of time, about 10 years, called Holy Scrap. So if you're interested in these subjects and want to go deeper, you can find our blog at
blog.holyscraphotsprings.com.
Yes, that's the Holy Scrap blog. And the book is widely available. You'll find it in retail and chains and on Amazon, pretty much anywhere. And once again, the title is The Good Life Lab: Radical Experiments in Hands-on Living. So whether you choose to check it out or not, I do hope you will consider the value of making a pledge towards abundance. And as you may well know at this point, eBay can really help with that pledge. Anything else, Mikey?
Nope, that's it for eBay Scavengers. This was episode 78, New Year's Pledge Towards Abundance.
And we want to say, cheers, happy 2014.